Alright, god damn it. What's going on, everyone? This is DeadDrop, and today we're gonna be talking about that Battlefield 1 beta. Because I was gonna wait until it was almost over to make this video, but I've played enough. I've got some notes. I've got some bullet points. I've got some stuff to say. So let's say it. So right off the bat, let's talk about the good stuff, because everybody likes to hear good news first, right? So the good stuff is the game actually looks pretty good in terms of visuals, right? The map looks solid, the character models look good, the weapon models look good. There's nothing that seems off in terms of the visuals. Everything seems very, very solid. Everything is very pretty. The dynamic weather effects are a nice touch, although I don't necessarily know how much they impact the gameplay, aside from, in this case, just completely blinding you and not letting you see anything. It didn't really seem to affect things like bullet drop or anything like that. However, I didn't really touch the sniper rifles very much during my time playing the beta. Now the weapons honestly feel like every other Battlefield. There's not a whole lot of recoil, there's not a whole lot of weapon spread, there's not a whole lot of stuff that you have to compensate for. It's your typical Battlefield arcade shooter where, again, like I said, the weapons don't have a lot of recoil, even though you might think they should because it's a World War I setting and the weapons weren't as high-tech as they are nowadays. They still feel very similar to the classic Battlefield stuff that you're used to from Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3. I'm used to other games like Counter-Strike and Quake, and games where, I don't want to say this and make it sound like I'm being I don't know, on a high horse or something, but games where you actually have to be able to aim. And again, when I say that, I don't mean that as in some type of like, oh, I'm better than you, but Counter-Strike, you have to compensate a lot for recoil if you're spraying, but in this game, again, you just pretty much look at the person, spray at them, and then they'll die. You don't really have to worry too much about things like recoil. And bullet drop is pretty much non-existent in this game, even with the snipers. Even with the little amount that I use the snipers, you got to be at a pretty far range in order for the bullet drop to take effect. Otherwise, you pretty much just aim right at them and they're dead. The gunplay, again, feels very similar to classic Battlefield stuff. Very solid, very fun, very, I won't say rewarding, but it's easy to pretty much pick up and play, aim at somebody, kill them. I feel like the most difficult aspect about learning or playing a Battlefield game is more the map design and kind of like the flow of the maps, because they're so large, and the flow of the game type, right? That's, to me, the most difficult part of learning the game. It's not the weapons themselves, it's not aiming, it's not shooting. So if you're a fan of Battlefield, then this should be right up your alley. You should have no problem picking this game up and jumping right into it and getting some headshots and whatnot. So now let's get to the bad stuff, and I actually do have quite a bit of bad stuff. Not all of it is game breaking or a complete deal breaker, but just some stuff that kind of irked me while I was playing. So number one, it's gonna be the spawn screen. The main global map, when you're spawning in, you're choosing a position to spawn, whether it's on a squad mate or on a control point or back at the home base. You can't actually see where you're spawning in, and therefore you can't make an informed decision about where you're spawning in, right? You don't know if your teammate is in a building, you don't know if he's out in the open, you don't know if he's in a tank. Well, I mean, if he's in a tank, you can tell, but you don't know if they're near a tank, you don't know what's going on. Occasionally, it will give you a prompt saying, hey, your squad mate's in a firefight right now. We're not going to let you spawn there because you're probably just going to spawn in and die. And if they get out of it, you can spawn in, and if they die, you have to choose another point. But for the most part, you can't actually make a decision as to whether or not where you're spawning in is a good choice. And as a result of that, or because of that, I would like to see them actually add either a zoom function, so you can zoom in slightly into the map so you can kind of see the area of the map where they're at more detail, in a more detailed manner, or add a squad mate cam. I think they had this in Battlefield 4, where sometimes you would actually get a camera in the global map where you could see a perspective from the squad mate, so you could see what's going on around them, where they're at, is there any enemies nearby, are they in a really shitty situation, so maybe you don't want to spawn there, things like that. Just, it's not a deal breaker, but it is pretty frustrating when you're playing this game. Now, this is going to be kind of controversial because I've seen some people talk about this topic in one way, and then, people talk about it in completely the opposite direction. And this is going to be relating to the time to kill. And now, I believe that the time to kill is a little bit too fast. Honestly, it feels like hardline at times, but at the same time, I don't know if it's because the time to kill is actually that fast or if it's the network that is just messing up, right? Because there are damage inconsistencies. Sometimes you drop people in 3 or 4 shots, other times you need to empty an entire magazine into them. And that's not because they're using the special classes or whatever. They're just normal dudes, but sometimes it just feels like I've got to spray this guy 20 times in order for him to die, right? This became very apparent to me when I started shooting people and they were pulling out their baton or their shovel and beating me, hitting me 3-4 times, and it's just like, wait a second, you're point blank and I just shot you like 15 times and you're not dead. That doesn't make sense. And then other times, you know, I'll barely shoot a dude and he'll drop instantly from full health. So, you know, this damage inconsistency stuff, it makes the game be very, very frustrating because it makes melee enemies really tough to deal with at times. You don't actually know if the weapons are very strong. You don't know if it's the network that's bad. You don't know if time to kill is too fast. You don't know any of these things, and it gives you the illusion that the time to kill is too fast. And I personally am not a fan of that. I do not like being killed in 2 or 3 shots, right? Especially in a game where the map design is in such a way where there's a million different lines of sight. There's a million different kill zones. There's a million different blind corners where you can be shot from. I don't like it. Now, let's get into some stuff that I wish they would have changed from Battlefield 4. And this is particularly regarding the post-game screen. So once you finish the match, you see the scoreboard, you see the best squad, you see the highest scores in the game, all this great information that honestly, I don't care about, and I don't think most people care about. The one thing that I wanted to see in Battlefield 4, and I wanted to see in Battlefield 1 as well, but it's not in the beta, is the ability to change my setup for the next match, or to go into my options and change video settings, control binds, audio settings, minimap size, crosshair color, all of these things. I should be able to go into the options menu during that 60-second wait period while the next map is loading so that I can change all of this ahead of time and I don't have to spend time at the very start of the map changing my setup or changing my video settings and doing all this other stuff that takes me out of the game, right? That's very frustrating. Please add it into the game. Now, this is a very, very big thing because in case you didn't know, Conquest has been changed. You're killing people and dying no longer reduces the ticket counter, and essentially what that does is it makes running out and dying less punishing, which means you can pretty much run around like an idiot and not have to worry about affecting your team because now your deaths don't matter. And as a result of this, it makes classes like the medic even less useful than they already are due to just the dynamic of the kit and how the game plays, right? There's no reason for a medic to run out into danger to revive you if at the end of the day it doesn't do anything for the ticket counter, if it doesn't provide any type of positive benefit to the team, right? So along those lines with the medic class and, you know, tickets and all of that, you also now have to request a revive in order for the revive icon to appear for the medic, right? You can either skip the revive phase or you can request a revive. If you request a revive, it will notify medics in your area who can come and revive you. Unfortunately for me though, I didn't really run into too many medics while I was playing because everybody was either using the sniper class or the assault class. And honestly, I feel like the medic and the assault classes should be flipped around in terms of the weapons they use. The medic should be using the fully auto weapon and the assault class should be using the semi-automatic weapon. That's just my opinion, and I believe that's because one has the medic kit, which is most likely going to be on the front lines reviving people, throwing out med packs, healing people that are on the front lines of the battlefield, and the other one is going to be hanging back, and when a tank comes around, they're going to use their AT launcher from a distance to take it out, right? That's the way I think the classes should play, and I would like to see that swapped around. But going back to the changes to Conquest, again, it rewards reckless play instead of actually being methodical. And I feel like I'm going to use this word, and I know a lot of people take offense to this word or see it as a bad thing, but I feel like it casualizes the game even further. And a lot of people have been saying this game just feels like Hardline, or this game feels like Battlefront. And to a certain degree, I agree with them because these things essentially take away from what Battlefield used to be, right? If I wanted to run out into the open, I had to think to myself, yo, we're getting pretty close to the wire here where, you know, it's like 20 to 30 in terms of tickets. Do I really want to take that risk? Or would I much rather just hang back and pick people off? You know, you don't actually have to think anymore about where you're going, where you're positioning. You just pretty much run out and die, and it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect the ticket counter. And what it ends up doing is it makes Conquest feel like a game of musical chairs, or what I like to call, that's what I like to call domination from Call of Duty, right? Where pretty much one team runs to this map, and then they just go around in a circle taking all the points, and the other team is either trailing or they're ahead of them. And there's no real emphasis on protecting an objective. There's no real emphasis on holding map control. There's no real emphasis on anything in terms of strategy, right? Now in Call of Duty domination, you do have some strategy, right? You hold 2 points, whatever. But in a map this big with this many points, it honestly doesn't really feel like there's any type of thought behind how to play the game mode. I would like to see them bring back classic Conquest in addition to this new version of Conquest, so that way, for people like me who don't necessarily like this version of Conquest, we can go back and play the old school style of Conquest that we know and love from the Battlefield franchise. And the next point, and this is a pretty common thing that people have been saying, is just that the map was bad. Again, going back to what I talked about earlier, there's far too many open areas. And the thing about this is that it makes the snipers seem really strong. And a lot of people have been complaining about the snipers, but I don't necessarily know if it's that the snipers are really strong or if it's just that the map caters to the sniper playstyle, right? But as of right now, this map is not my favorite. Honestly, if this is a taste of things to come for the map design in Battlefield 1, I'm not a fan of it. There's a million blind corners. Everywhere you look, there's a window or a rooftop or a door or an alleyway where you can get shot from. And then there's points like E that are out in the middle of nowhere, which is like, why would I ever go there? And then there's points like B and A, which are pretty much, if you're going to run out there, you're going to get picked off by a sniper or by a vehicle. And so therefore, there's no actual way to maneuver through the map in a safe manner to minimize the risk of you getting picked off or minimize the risk of some random dude running around the corner and spraying you down. And it's really, really frustrating, right? Because when you have a situation when you have a high time to kill and you have another situation where reacting to the opponent is almost impossible, right? Because even though somebody might appear in front of you, you might have a guy, 45 degrees up in the air on a rooftop somewhere, and you have to account for that too. You can't do that. And so therefore, running around is pretty much the best way to die in this game. And I don't necessarily like that. I like to be that fast-paced runner that goes around killing people, taking objectives and things like that. But this game really doesn't seem to cater for that. Or at least, I won't say this game, but I'll say this map doesn't really seem to cater to that playstyle. And also the map itself, in terms of aesthetic, in terms of setting, is not very visually pleasing. I understand this is supposed to be, I guess, like the Ottoman Empire, right, in like Turkey. That's cool and all, that's historically accurate, but I would prefer to see the old school World War European stage where we have, the gloomy overcast skies and the old buildings and, all of that stuff. That's what I prefer to play on. And that's what my idea of a World War shooter is, not necessarily out in the desert in the middle of nowhere where, again, it feels very similar to Battlefront. The map feels like it would be a Battlefront map. And I didn't really play the Rush game mode. I'm not a big fan of Rush in Battlefield, but apparently people have been saying it's not very good for that game mode either. So that's my complaint about the map. I think it looks pretty in terms of like graphical fidelity, but in terms of just setting, I don't really like it. I don't like desert settings. I don't like, I'm not a fan of that. And finally, it wouldn't be a Battlefield beta if there weren't bugs, right? It wouldn't be a new Battlefield game if there weren't bugs. And in case you didn't see the video that I posted a couple of days ago, I'm going to put an annotation right now on the screen so you guys can go ahead and click on that and check it out. But yeah, there's a lot of bugs. Vaulting is still broken somehow, even though it was broken in Battlefield 3 and fixed, and then it was broken in Battlefield 4 and fixed, and it's now broken in Battlefield 1, and who knows when it's going to be fixed. I don't understand how these things keep getting through. It's the same engine. You have the same people working on the engine. You should simply just copy the code and the animation over and then tweak it from there, so that way you can make sure that when you do vault onto an object or vault over a wall, you don't get stuck in that animation, or you don't teleport to the other side of the map and then come back like what happened to me in that video that I posted. That was really, really weird. I've never experienced that in a Battlefield game before, and hopefully that's not a sign of things to come at the launch. And finally, I guess I'll give my thoughts as to whether or not I'm going to be picking this game up on day one, and the answer is no. And it's not because I don't think it's a good game, or I hate the game, or I had a bad experience. I will say I had a bad experience the first day, but that was more due to technical issues. I don't know what was going on. I played it on PC the first day and I wasn't having fun. I played it on PS4 the next day. I was having a lot more fun. I jumped onto the PC later on that night and I was having a good time again. So maybe it was just that day one thing for Battlefield Insiders. It was, you know, the game had just, or the beta had just launched and there were probably some bugs going on, or I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't a very good time. But the reason why I won't be picking this game up at launch is simply because I've played Battlefield games before at launch and they never work at launch. There's always problems, there's always bugs, there's always glitches, despite the fact that they give us these quote unquote betas a month or two before the games are released, right? And that's what makes me very, very worried about the release of Battlefield 1. Again, it's not because I think the game is going to be bad, it's not because I don't think the game is fun, it's not because I think the game is, you know, too casual or whatever. I don't care about that. I play Battlefield to have fun. I don't play Battlefield to think like I'm some FPS god who's going to go around and just showing off my EP to other people. But because of the fact that Battlefield has a history of being broken at launch, and sometimes, in the case of Battlefield 4 especially, not being patched until a year later, I don't feel confident in giving EA $60 for a game that I have no guarantee will work at launch, especially with the track record that DICE has, and the track record of games just in general that have been releasing lately, right? So with that being said, leave a like if you disliked Reverse Psychology. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a dislike if you disliked the video. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Let me know down below what your experiences are with the game. Are you picking it up on day one? Did you hate it? Did you love it? What is it? Let me know. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys later.